Because Mr. Ram Madhav, the question that I was asking you was with regards to why exactly this political furor. If you take a look at the comment that has been made by Supreme Court advocate and Congress member Abhishek Manu Singhvi, he says, and I'm quoting, that the government cannot stipulate that everyone use only one name. I'll get into the history of it in a short while from now, but your first comment on this controversy that has erupted.
Firstly, this we do not know whether it's going to be the whole agenda item for the forthcoming special session of the parliament, but as of now, the name change that we see on invitation cards of Rashtrapati ji, etc., is actually welcomed by the whole country. Crores and crores of people of our country are very happy about the use of word Bharat to denote our country. If there is some problem for some political parties, let them have that problem. But country welcomes this decision, India to be called hereafter as Bharat. Or Bharat will be more prominently used in our public discourse of the government and elsewhere, will be definitely welcomed by everybody in our country, every person in our country. And in RSS, we always use the word Bharat. If you check our resolutions in RSS, we always use Bharat because India was a name given by those who colonized us. Merits and demerits apart, colonizers give names to countries, places, individuals. At some point, once you are decolonized, you give up that borrowed identity, take up your own identity. It happened with many countries. Myanmar used to be called as Burma. Today they call themselves as Myanmar. Right. Sri Lanka used to be called as Ceylon. They call themselves as Sri Lanka today. They return to their original name. Similarly, Bharat has been the name of our country for time immemorial. So this long pending thing that is happening now, we should all be happy.
Mr. Madhav, some argue that this is an extension of what the RSS wanted. Starting from RSS founder Mr. Hegrawar back in 1940 in Nagpur, the speech that he made. I'm not quoting from there, but also what Sir Sankalak M.S. Golwalkar also said in his book, and I'm quoting, some within the opposition say that this is what the government essentially wants. Because if you see, Golwalkar essentially wrote in his book that the first thing they preached was that our nationality could not be called Hindu, that even our land could not be called by its traditional name Hindustan, as it would offend the Muslim. The name India given by the British was accepted. Taking that name, the new nation was called the Indian nation. So some basically argue that just about a few days ago in Guwahati, you had RSS chief making this point that Bharat should be used. Opposition parties are up in arms saying that you essentially are following what the RSS basically wants.
Oh, not just Prime Minister. Mr. Rahul Gandhi undertook his yatra. He called it Bharat Jodo Yatra. That means he is following RSS diktats then. Look, Bharat is the name very commonly used for our country by ordinary people of this country. When we speak in our Indian language as Bharatiya Bhashas, we use word Bharatiya. When in English, when we use that word in English, we call it India. So India is not the translation of Bharat. India is a name given by the British to this country. How that name came is a long history. In our ancient history, in Vishnu Purana, it was said, Uttaram yat samudrasya himadresyeva dakshinam varsham tad bharatam nama bharatiyatra santadhi. Bharat's name has been having a history of at least 2,000, more than 2,000 years, you must remember. So, in the long history, in our colloquial interactions, we always use the word Bharat. So many Congress leaders, when they speak in Hindi or local languages, they use the word Bharat. They don't say India. So, Bharat is the core identity of this country. We have somehow decided that we should have an English word for it. No country will have one word for local use and one for English translation. Countries' names cannot have translations. So today, time has come for us to decide, okay, British gave this name. Time has come for us to shed that and return to our original identity, namely Bharat. What is so wrong about it? Why should there be any big controversy about it? Has this name been invented by any political party in this country? No. Even in the Constituent Assembly, there was a lot of debate over it. What name should be given? Should we call it Bharat Varsha or Bharat Khanda? And finally, it was decided after some deliberation that we call it India, also Bharat. Now we can decide that no, let us call it Bharat. So this whole controversy is entirely uncalled for. Actually, everybody should come together and build a consensus on this, and everybody should agree to this happy change. Why any controversy? Everybody uses it. As I said, Congress uses it. Other parties use it, this name. Why controversy then?
Mr. Ram Madhav, as far as the legality is concerned, you've had the former Additional Solicitor General Aman Lekhi saying that if any changes are to be brought in, as far as in the G20 invites are concerned, or even for that matter, the legality associated with it in the functioning of the Supreme Court, this would essentially require a constitutional amendment under Article 368. But some say that there is absolutely no need for it. A resolution is good enough, and it's high time perhaps that we start using Bharat instead of India. What would you say to them?
No, it's a constitutional issue. Probably, obviously, the experts will be able to give you a good answer. But as far as constitution is concerned, there is provision for changing the names of cities, of districts, and even of states. Our constitution has provisions for change of name for the states. That is how, Orissa became Odisha. That provision is there. But for the change of the name of our country, what procedure to be adopted? Probably, I'm not an expert on that. Probably the experts will say. In any case, the simple point is, Bharat is already there in the constitution, right? In our preamble, we call our country India, that is Bharat. So Bharat is not something that we are newly inserting in our constitution or anything. It's already there. We started using it prominently now. How to give it the full constitutional status? The experts and maybe the parliament, when it meets up 2 weeks from now, maybe they will decide. I do not know what is the agenda there. But I'm coming back to that question of why so much of protest or creating controversy over that very happy decision of calling ourselves Bharat. It should be welcomed.
A quick shift of focus with regards to G20, and you have written a lot about how India is essentially emerging as the voice of the global south. Let me ask you a quick question with regards to the consensus aspect, because that is turning out to be the key concern at this stage, with Chinese president not being part of it, Russia president not being part of it. A lot of talk going on, whether at all we'll come to any sort of a consensus on this matter. Should that really worry us?
Look, at Bali also, the G20 happened in a slightly difficult situation post the breakout of, conflict between Russia and Ukraine. The first G20 happened at Bali last year. Last year also, there was a huge, I would say, back and forth over building a consensus over the final draft of the resolution that comes out of every G20 summit. So India played a very crucial role in ensuring that one paragraph would be inserted about the Ukraine conflict also. Although G20 primarily focuses on economic issues only, wars these days also will have their impact on economy. So as a result, at Bali, we midwived in building the consensus over that draft resolution, and it has come out well. A 52-para resolution that has come out, while incorporating the views of the Western powers, G7 powers, and also the Russian side and the Chinese side. We have been able to play a very crucial role in building consensus there. So I don't see any reason why we should think that such a consensus would be difficult here. In fact, I would say this time's G20 is happening under difficult circumstances for a different reason. It is more economic reasons. Today, China is in dire economic straits. One of the reasons for Mr. Xi Jinping deciding to skip this year's G20 could be this economic situation in that country. Remember, China is a major economic engine as far as manufacturing is concerned, it provides manufactured goods to the whole country. When that economy is in trouble, it is trouble for the whole country. Similarly, Western economies are doing very badly at this juncture. So this meeting is happening at a time the global economic scenario is not looking up very brightly. It's actually very bleak. So India has an important role to ensure that it is one economy which is doing extremely well in the whole world. It's the bright spot of the world today. So India should be able to now play an important role in helping countries that are in need, especially the global south, and also making sure that we all work together to ensure that this economic crisis tides over quickly. So in that sense, it's going to be an important presidency for India, this G20. Remember, Mr. Putin not coming, Mr. Xi not coming, it need not be seen as anything negative for India. Putin has not been going out of his country for many months now. In fact, the last couple of years, he has not moved out of Russia. Xi Jinping actually skipped the summit that is happening right now in Jakarta, where our Honorable Prime Minister is present today. Xi Jinping didn't go. So countries sometimes skip attending conferences for their own internal reasons. And China has enough internal trouble today for Xi Jinping to stay home and handle the affairs. That's why probably he's not coming. That should not be seen as any reflection on India's presidency. On the contrary, India today has a major important role to play at the G20 summit, which India will definitely play.
A quick question I wanted to also take with you, Mr. Ram Madhav, is because you've also been speaking to several countries representing India at various forums. In fact, you're outside even today. How is it that India's presidency of the G20 would be very different this time? And why is it that, as many would be saying, that we are taking this to our domestic audience? And that's where it really matters. The G20 is now being taken to the domestic audience. What is it that you would be expecting from the world in the days to come?
Okay. Prime Minister called India's presidency of the G20 as people's presidency. In the last 1 year, we tried to take the G20 country representatives to many parts of our country. Our country is a great country with great culture, great history, great civilizational aspect, and great development that has happened in the last many years. So we have been able to showcase all that to the delegates, representatives of all the 20 participating countries of G20 group of countries. In the last 1 year, more than 200 meetings, I think to be precise, some 220 or 230 meetings have taken place. Prime ministers, ministers traveled to many parts of the country. That way, it became a sort of a very different type of a G20 leadership for India, because India made it truly a pan-Indian people's presidency-led event, this G20 event. But how it is more important as far as India is concerned is because today India leads the global south. Now, global south is for some people a new phrase. It's not actually a new phrase. You know, long back, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, our leadership used to talk about South-South cooperation. So global south meaning the part of the world which is densely populated. 80% of the world's population has been a victim for many reasons of the activities of the industrialized north. These countries today look up to India as their voice. India, when it goes to G20 as the president this time, it will be representing the global south. It will be the voice of the global south. The challenges that the world is facing, that G20 would take up for deliberation, whether it is climate-related challenges or whether it is technology-related challenges like artificial intelligence, robotics, bitcoins, and economic challenges, and all these issues. India will be presenting the case for 80% of the world's population. And that 80% is looking up to India with great hope. You know, India today is championing the cause of African Union, a 56-country union. India is trying to make it a member of the G20. If a 27-country European Union can be a member of G20, why not the 56th country African Union? Once African Union joins, it becomes a much louder voice for global South. So India is now that way making certain legacy decisions. It will be remembered by the Africans forever. So that way, India is today emerging as an important voice for almost 80% of the global population. But in that, just one final footnote, while we are doing it, we are not pitting this 80% against the developed 20%, our so-called global north. We are saying together we have to build the future.
Right.
The future can no longer be dictated by institutions built by the global north. Global South and Global North together have to build a new world order, new institutional framework based on which the global affairs should be managed in the coming years and coming decades. That is going to be a very significant contribution of India. India is in a position to make that significant contribution because India today has arrived. India is no longer a backbencher. It is on the front lines.
Right.
In fact, some experts predict that next 10 years, India will be one of the top 3 countries in the world. G3 will be USA, China, and India. So India has arrived. India realizes that it has arrived and it has a role to play. That role is being played very effectively by our Prime Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ram Madhav, for joining us on this special broadcast. Perhaps it's also time, Mr. Ram Madhav, that this entire notion of developing nation versus developed nation, something that as ambiguous as it is always been, perhaps it's time to even redefine that and no longer associate India as just as a developing nation, which is, again, a misnomer, which is something that we'll argue sometime later. But thank you very much for joining us on this special broadcast. A watershed moment for India.